11 o'clock or 12. We're going to go ahead and get started. Let's get to protocols of a webinar. You'll see on your screen that we have muted your conversation, so we won't be able to hear you. As Tania, as our presenter, gets into her presentation, if you have questions or concerns and you'd like to share that, there is an option that's listed under chat. That's to the far right at the bottom. If you'll open the chat session and begin typing a question, I'll be able to address that once Tania is complete, and or I will send you a response. So pay close attention to that open chat box. Well, I appreciate your attendance today. I'm very excited to introduce today's speaker. Tania DeSa is the president of Tania DeSa International. I am Kim Cummings. I'm the VP of HR for NAP DFW. We are going to talk about the essentials of how we use storytelling to promote, to get promoted. It's the #1 most powerful way to get there. Tania is a global training, owns a global training and coaching firm whose mission is to inspire professionals to own their office, to be seen and heard in any community. She is a leadership coach that draws from intercultural experiences from traveling to over 68 countries and living and studying and working in Australia, Japan, Hungary, Spain, China, and Switzerland. She holds an international MBA from ESAD Business School in Spain and Peking University in China. Tania has thrived in corporate sales and marketing management roles within the global healthcare industry in such companies as Pfizer, GlaxoSmithKline, Medtronic, Ecolab, Johnson & Johnson, and has led strategic discussions at the World Health Organization in Switzerland. She is a board member for the North American Association of Asian Americans, NAP Toronto, and the co-chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force for the WGTA Summit. Tania has over 8 years of global corporate experience to empower professionals in developing strong value propositions and creating buy-in at any level in order to be seen and heard in the workplace. Now, she just launched a global e-course on how to rock your performance review and is thrilled to embark on a speaking tour in India early next year. Just some personal items on Tania. She's a travel junkie, eternal smiler, and salsa dancing enthusiast. Please welcome Tania to the stage.
Wow, well, thank you for such a warm introduction, Kim, and welcome to everybody online right now. Just gonna pull this up. Okay, so welcome, warm welcome. I think we have people from many different countries online, and we are spanning quite a few different time zones. So whether you're having your morning latte or your Powerade at lunch, welcome, and so glad that you could join us for the next hour together. So I want to give you maximum value for your time, so let's jump right in. Okay, so the first thing is we want to socialize the learning. I really encourage everyone to please use the hashtag #RockTheReview. You can tweet Passion Igniter, which is my Twitter handle, as well as, of course, NAP and NAP Toronto. Feel free to tweet any learnings, any questions. Let's make this interactive, and let's have fun in the next hour that we have together. I also want to put out a challenge to you to please share your key learning. So your #1 learning that you're going to walk away with. Feel free to share that on LinkedIn or Facebook today. Okay, and lastly, we have a very active chat box. So if you have any questions that are coming in or popping into your head, please feel free to post them in the chat box. We'll be collecting all the questions, and we will definitely be addressing them at the end of this webinar. Alrighty. So Kim gave an awesome introduction into who I am and what I'm about. I just want to go a step, let's say a layer deeper, and share with you the 3 values I live and work by. The first one being adventure. I am an adventure junkie. Whether it's flying a plane in New Zealand or dancing tango in the streets of Argentina, I love that sense of adrenaline. And I've really tried to take that same sense of adventure into my professional life as well. So as Kim mentioned, I've had the opportunity to work and study abroad in quite a few exotic countries, and it's really added to the diverse experience that I'm bringing to you. But also, I'm somebody who wants to be known for doing what she said she's going to do. Meaning, one of my biggest values is really living by example. And lastly, I love a room of sweaty people and ideas. Hopefully I haven't just made you lose your appetite there, but I love team and community, really belonging to a team and community. So much so that I actually invented my own word called teamunity. And these are some of the teams and communities I'm so honored to have been a part of. But what you should really know is that, oh, sorry. Can you guys see this? Yeah. What you should really know is that my mission statement is this: I inspire professionals to own their awesomeness with personal communication strategies that enable them to be seen and heard at work. So this is why I'm here. This is what I'm truly passionate about, and I'm so honored to be able to invest time with you today to dig a little deeper into this. So, what are your objectives? Please use the question window that you have open now, or the chat box, and I want you to really take a few moments to think about what you want to walk away with from our 1 hour together. What are your objectives for this call? Take a few moments to note them down for yourself, and if you can, share them with us in the chat box or the question box. I really honor the time that you are investing in me in this webinar, and I want to offer you 10 times the value. So my hope is that you can take one big idea and take action on it immediately to see results in your own life. So my objective is to offer you inspiration and practical tools to ignite action. Okay, so Kim, do we have some messages in our chat box of objectives?
Yes, so one of the questions we have is, how do I stand out in a crowd of high achievers?
Oh, I love that. Okay. Achievers. We're going to get to that. Awesome. I think idea storytelling is really a tactic that you can use to do that. And I'm going to be giving you a process that you can use and kind of make it a brain tattoo to use in any situation. Awesome. Any other objectives of what people want to walk away with?
There are no additional comments at this point.
Okay, okay, cool. So we'll move along here. So this content is packed, so feel free to grab your latte and let's dive right in, okay? So this is our roadmap of our time together. First, I'm going to address the 2 most common myths when it comes to idea storytelling and getting promoted. Next, we'll jump into the 3-pillar process of idea storytelling. And then I want to leave you with a 3-step formula to pitch any idea successfully. And of course, I want to give you a gift at the end. Okay. So, myths and truths. Myth number 1. Storytelling is for children and Mother Goose. It has no place in the office. First, let me define what I mean when I say idea storytelling. So, idea storytelling is clearly communicating your idea in a way that compels others to act. And another way to think about this is, how do you engage stakeholders and create buy-in for your idea? So let's see how this concept of idea storytelling shows up in our lives today. We are always moving other people to part with resources, intangible like time, effort, or intention, or tangible like cash, so that we can both get what we want. Now, the brilliant author of To Sell is Human, Dan Pink, said this. And he's onto something here, because majority of the time that we spend interacting with people, we are trying to convince them to give up time, money, or energy in exchange for something we've got. We are constantly exchanging value and compelling others to act. So when you think about it, when we start to look at the professional world, we are always doing this. Doctors sell patients on treatment regimes. Lawyers sell juries on a verdict. Teachers sell students on the benefit of paying attention in class. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. And entrepreneurs woo venture capitalists for funding. So whatever your profession is, you deliver presentations to others with the intention of compelling them to act. You sell your ideas in team meetings, in front of potential clients, and even to your boss during your annual performance review. And storytelling also kind of crosses over past our 9-to-5 lives. Often we're selling our ideas and compelling others to act in our private lives. Whether we're selling our creativity on Etsy, our ideas to funders on Kickstarter, or our talent to potential employers or industry colleagues on LinkedIn, or even our best character traits to potential soulmates on Match.com. We are selling our ideas on ourselves. So idea storytelling has a solid place in our day-to-day lives. And when you think about it, we are so often selling our ideas and ourselves. We are all in sales, and there's evidence to back it up. I had the opportunity to meet Daniel Pink and see him speak live a few months ago, and this is one of his core messages. And there's a lot of research to back up just how much time we spend selling. In a survey done of over 9,000 professionals in the U.S., it was found that people are now spending 40% of their time at work engaged in non-selling, which basically means persuading, influencing, and convincing others to act. So that translates into 24 minutes out of every hour in the workplace spent doing non-traditional selling. And storytelling is one powerful way we can sell our ideas. So the survey also noted that professionals considered this aspect of their work crucial to their professional success. Not only were they doing it often, but it made a huge difference in their success and progression. So for the earlier question we had about how to stand out in a room full of high performers, idea storytelling can be a way to really differentiate yourself as top talent. And I'll take you through the process of how you can do that. So basically, what this is all telling us is that storytelling isn't just for kids anymore. It is a useful tactic that we can use to sell our ideas to others and compel them to act. And research shows that it's something we do during the workday really often. Myth number 2. I don't need to ask for a promotion. My work should speak for itself. Oh, I hear this one all the time from colleagues, clients, and friends. And something happened very recently in the media, and I started to wonder if this myth was in fact a reality today. On October 9th, 2014, just last month, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella advised that women shouldn't ask for raises at work. They should trust that their employers will give it to them when the time is right. He went on to encourage professionals at the Grace Hopper Women in Tech conference to trust faith and karma to reward them accordingly. Now, usually CEOs give stellar advice, but in this case, I'm encouraging you, please do not follow his advice. Later that day, he regretted his statements and ended up sending an email to all Microsoft employees to say, if you believe you've earned the right to ask for a raise, you should ask. So And other professionals agree as well. With Nancy Rothbard, for example, she's a management professor at Wharton School of Business. She says, it is not very likely that an employee will advance to C-suite without ever having to ask for a pay raise or promotion. What the bulk of research says is that you need to be able to ask for opportunities to make them happen. So we live in a really fast-paced global workplace where you need to be seen and heard to get ahead. And it's necessary to leverage your unique strengths in order to bring value to the workplace. And then you need to have the courage to fearlessly ask for what you want. So the truth to counter this myth is that you are probably a rock star at what you do. But for others to recognize that, it is vital that you tell the right stakeholders what you're doing and why it matters. And as Victor Hugo says, the French poet, when a man is out of sight, it is not too long before he is out of mind. Out of sight, out of mind. So, how visible are you from your cubicle? If you are the only one that knows the amazing work that you're doing, you may be your own best kept secret. And this silence or even invisibility, it is costing you today. It is costing you the recognition you deserve, but it's also costing the people around you because there are people who need the unique value that only you can bring. By keeping your talent hidden or on the mute button, you are stealing value from people who need it. If you want to be seen and heard in the workplace, storytelling is the ideal way for you to showcase your accomplishments in an authentic way. So, now you know why idea storytelling is key. But when do you do it? And what's in it for you? Or WIFI, like I like to use. There are a number of situations in the workplace where you need to communicate your ideas in order to compel others to act. And so let's take a few moments now just to brainstorm some situations where you would have to compel others to act in the workplace. Feel free to type them in the chat box here, or to pose them as questions. And I'll throw out a few while you guys are brainstorming. The first one is pitching a project idea in a team meeting. That's clearly in a forum where you have the opportunity to influence and sell people on your ideas and really showcase your personal brand as well. Another one, convincing someone in another department to speed up timelines on a cross-functional project. If anyone's been through a product launch, you know that this is key. Influencing a customer to purchase from you. And one that comes up, especially this time of year, convincing your boss to give you that raise, that big promotion, or make you the lead on a project that you've been craving. And you can have that conversation during your annual performance review. So Kim, are there any other suggestions that have come up in our chat box?
Introducing difficult conversations, having difficult conversations, direct reports, having meetings to introduce change into the organization, absolutely, and telling your boss no.
Yes, that's key. Absolutely. We are constantly inundated with new projects, and it seems like there's always something new flying onto our desk. So that ability to say no, to prioritize, and to really build a solid case and sell that no is key. And again, courageous conversations, another great example of where you have to compel someone to understand where you're coming from, adopt your idea, and then act on it. So idea storytelling is really key in these situations. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So, one of the things, the last one that was mentioned here was kind of around performance reviews. And it feels like we're coming upon this season of performance reviews as we get the end of the year and going into a new 2015. So, one of my biggest regrets was actually back in 2006. I was 5 months into my new sales job at a major pharmaceutical company, And I felt I was working harder than ever to get up to speed on the products, build relationships with my customers, and also be seen as a value-added team member to my colleagues. And to be honest, I was really proud of how I was performing so far. So when the afternoon of my performance review rolled around, I thought, okay, no problem. I got this. I will just roll in there. I'll answer a few questions, and I'll be able just to sit back and hear the feedback that my manager has for me. Boy, was I wrong. Within the first 5 minutes, my manager was asking me for 3 specific examples of how I had created value in each of the 5 major competency areas. I started sweating right through my shirt. And all the hard work that I had been doing over the last 5 months completely vanished. At one point, I even had to excuse myself to go to the restroom to buy myself more time and to think of examples and case studies and prepare stories. So the performance review is really an ideal time for you to practice and perfect your idea storytelling. You have this golden opportunity to differentiate yourself as top talent and show and tell your accomplishments, and then courageously ask for what you want in a way that compels your manager to act. If you use idea storytelling, the what's in it for you can be that you gain visibility that you desire. You get the recognition that you deserve, and you get the support that you really need. So fast forward from that, me sitting there in 2006 in the coffee shop having this disastrous performance review. It was an epic failure. Fast forward 5 years, and utilizing the idea storytelling methodology, I was walking out of a performance review in Switzerland with a raise, an education grant, and a commitment to be lead on 2 major global projects. And trust me, if this process worked for me, it can work for anyone. I'm no different. But chief storytellers have existed in business for a while. And I really want to give you an example of an epic corporate storyteller. None other than Apple's founder, the late Steve Jobs. So, what does idea storytelling really look like? Many consider Steve to be one of the best corporate storytellers that ever lived. And that brand of Apple tells the story of being on the cutting edge of innovation. The rebels who are outliers, and there's a very cool brand recognition that goes along with Apple. So Steve Jobs brought aspects of storytelling not only to building the brand, but also during product launches. Take the MacBook Air launch, for example. His goal was to make the world fall in love with the thinnest computer they've ever seen. His preparation was meticulous. He knew his audience inside out. He had a clear vision of what success looked like. And then he crafted a compelling and awe-inspiring story. He even used props and visuals to help tell his story. In fact, you can say he used kind of a show and tell type of storytelling. And stories really come alive with examples and case studies. In this example, Steve inspired awe in front of everyone's eyes with the simple element of contrast. I'm sure many of you have seen those quite unattractive manila envelopes floating around the office. But had you ever seen a full computer being pulled out of one before? The simple act executed in the right way conveyed a clear message to his key audience. His focus on his audience helped him craft the appropriate story to engage them and then motivate them to act. And Maya Angelou says it best. People will not always remember what you said or what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. So storytelling works in business in so many situations. I want to introduce you to the 3 pillars of idea storytelling. Okay. This is the secret sauce, folks. So this is the triple S process of idea storytelling. It's simple to remember and extremely effective. Number 1, always start with your stakeholders. And really get to know them, study them, think about who they are so you know how to engage them. Next, envision success. What is your end goal? And lastly, then start to build out the story. So let's go through each of these steps in a little bit more detail. I love this quote by an AT&T leader. Designing a presentation or story, for that example, without an audience in mind is like addressing a love letter to whom it may concern. It really hammers it home, doesn't it? That you need to be so focused on who you're talking to in order to engage them and compel them to act. Whether you're trying to differentiate yourself as top talent, have a courageous conversation, or sell your idea in a team meeting, you need to think about who your stakeholders are. So, for your message or story to resonate, it doesn't have to be complicated, this analysis, or take you hours to prepare. You can take 5 to 10 minutes and brainstorm the answers to these 5 questions. Who are they? What worries them? Why do they care? Where could they resist? And how can I help? Investing this time up front in understanding who the people are on the other side of the table, this is really going to help you craft your story and a message that at the end of the day is going to engage them and move them into action. And in my opinion, this is the most important time investment you could make. And so often we skip over it. So I strongly encourage you to study your stakeholders. And in the case of getting promoted, think about who are the key decision makers, and then answer these questions with them in mind. Now, this step in this process alone has really changed the way I interact with people. And I think if you use it enough, it will start to become a mindset, which at the end of the day can become a game changer in business and in life. Step 2, envision success. Begin with the end in mind. Look, if you can't see the post, you don't know where to kick the ball. So define what success looks like. It's key to know your outcome as vividly as possible before you start to craft and deliver your story. You want to be crystal clear on your intentions and expected outcomes going into a team meeting, a client pitch, or a performance review. And when I say get vivid, you want to think about what does success look like, sound like, and feel like. So really get you almost want to visualize as colorfully as possible what your end goal is here. So again, what does success look like, sound like, feel like? Okay, next we want to actually start building the story. So this is the 3-step formula for crafting your story. Number 1, what? What is the core message? Think clearly about what your core message is. I find often in business, we throw around a lot of jargon, which makes ideas sound complex and sometimes very smart. But simplicity rules if you want your ideas to stick. I remember back when I was a sales rep and there was marketing training. We were launching a brand new cardiovascular drug. And the marketing team was training our sales team on patient profiles. And they were throwing all of these statistics at us, like, oh, male, age 65, high blood pressure, all of these stats. It was becoming exhausting trying to remember this bullet point list of characteristics in our minds. And finally, this brilliant marketing manager pulled out a photograph of a 65-year-old Asian man named Pat. He described Pat, holding this picture. And he described him that, he was 65 years old, male, recently retired. He was really passionate about gardening. And he couldn't exert too much physical energy due to his high blood pressure, which was slowing him down. So the photo showed Pat gardening and carrying on with his daily life. This marketing manager was essentially telling us all the same information and the same data but he was using a very strong image, and he had created a persona around it. So when we think of the person, it made it easier to adopt the idea, and it also invoked kind of an emotional response. So this marketing manager had done a great job of bringing the core message, which was these statistics and this information. He very easily could have made it a data dump, but instead he found a creative way to communicate the core message, the what. The next step is, so what? Great that you have a core message and you want to put it out there, but let's face it, the person sitting in the other seat, they're thinking, what's in it for me? So put yourself in their seat. Think about how the message affects them based on everything you know about them from your stakeholder analysis that you did just a few minutes ago. And if we go back to the same marketing training example, I could visualize the person I was helping, which made me more motivated to adopt the idea and act on it. So the marketing manager really put himself in my shoes, and he understood that I would need a tool that would engage my customers quickly and visually. He made it really easy for me to remember all the information and then use it in the tight time frame with my customers. He had absolutely put himself in my shoes and seen the issue from my perspective, which helped me adopt the idea faster. Okay, so you've done the what, so what. Third step is now what? Selling an idea means building support for it, and oftentimes compelling others to take action. So make it crystal clear what they've got to do next. You really want to build a strong call to action here. And so often we start to sell people on our ideas, and we leave it with a few nodding heads and people saying, yeah, I agree with you. And then we risk losing all this momentum without taking the next step, without making it really clear on what it is they have to do next. So don't let the momentum die. If you've generated real excitement for your idea, then make it really easy for people to follow through. Lay out the action and build in accountability. So again, going to our example of the marketing training case, I was sold on this tool. And the marketing manager basically said, okay, what you've got to do next is these are the steps, go order it online and use it. He made it so simple, it was an easy yes. So I did it, and it turned out to be a really successful tool. Overall, building a compelling story, you really want to make sure you have a clear message, you capture the audience, and then you compel them to act. What, so what, now what? I really encourage you to make this kind of a brain tattoo. It's something really simple. These 3 questions you can keep in your mind, and when you're ready and you have the opportunity to sell somebody, you want to sell one of your ideas, always think of this as a structure for how you structure and articulate your story. Okay, so it is time to leap into action. And I promised you some Q&A time and a gift. So I want you to know, I understand where you're coming from. We are all busy professionals, and I bet that we attend countless meetings and workshops and conferences every month alone. And the secret sauce to growth and development is turning ideas into action. So how will you make the 1 hour we spend together count? And I love this quote by T. Harv Eker. He says, how you do anything is how you do everything. You have 2 choices. You can follow Microsoft CEO's advice and trust in karma for a raise, a promotion, or work opportunities to fall into your lap. Or you can take the path I've offered you here today, where you have more control over your destiny and your career path. A mentor of mine always says, we are always one decision away from transformation. So now you have choice of 1 or two decisions. You can leverage the introductory lessons you've learned here today on your own, or You can join a community of over 280 professionals from around the world and allow me to personally guide you through a proven system of building a personal brand that you can showcase at work and use in your performance review to ask for what you want and get it. Yesterday, as mentioned, I launched a brand new e-course called Rock the Review, Get Promoted as VIP Talent. The entire 10-module course can be done in a few lunch hours during the work week. And there's fill-in-the-blank templates you can take right into your performance review. I also bring in advice from Fortune 500 executives and offer personal stories and case studies to guide you through the journey. But when I introduced myself earlier, I told you about my mission. And my mission is to help professionals be seen and heard. And that is really what I'm here to do. And I also promised you a gift. So here's my gift. I want you to know how much I value you and your potential. And I want to invest $50 in everyone on this call today. I want to make a sincere investment in you and also take on all the risk by offering you a full 30-day money-back guarantee. So this investment is valid for the next 48 hours till the weekend. And if you go through this course, you will be on your way to building a stellar relationship with your boss, declaring your value, and moving up the corporate ladder. I hope that you will join us. You know, I'm ending it on kind of idea storytelling. Performance review is an ideal example of a time when idea storytelling is critical. You need a clear message. You need to understand your audience and then compel your boss to adopt your idea and take action. How you build your story and communicate it will determine whether you are seen and heard at work. So I've done a lot of talking over the last 40 minutes, and I want to make sure we have time to answer any questions and kind of open up the floor to discussion and questions. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Kim, and let's start addressing some of the questions that have come up.
Great. We've got some good ones here. So the first question is around the communication style. So she wants to learn how to use her storytelling to engage her audience to get the message across effectively. However, sometimes it feels like she's repeating the question or repeating the topic. How would she, or what tools do you have or tidbits of best practices to help her get back on track?
Okay, so great question. I think the first thing I would say is what you're doing is really important. I'm hearing that you're paraphrasing and making sure that you're reiterating the topic, which is important because you want to make sure that you're actually talking about the same thing with your stakeholder. So that's a really important piece of communication. I would say keep that in. One way you maybe want to kick it up is to use the questions of really understanding your stakeholder. So those 5 questions that we're looking at with the stakeholders, when you start to think about what do they really want, what keeps them up at night, you'll start to think about what challenges they're facing, what problems they're having, and then think about how you can solve them, which turns the conversation into, let's say, a different angle, and you really start thinking of problem and solution. So you're expanding on that topic, going deeper, and I think really those 5 questions in the stakeholder analysis will really help you just get you start brainstorming and going a little deeper into the topic. So I recommend spending 5 or 10 minutes thinking about this topic, but more importantly, thinking about the stakeholder and answering those 5 questions.
Great. Thank you. The next question, this one is top of mind for me as I'm dealing with this in my own workforce, is the older worker who is transitioning careers.
Mm-hmm.
How would they engage their audience, and how do they share their stories with others?
Oh, this is it's a brilliant opportunity for storytelling, because I think that as we transition in careers, we often look at a job description and we focus so much attention on the core competencies and what's the skills needed to do the job. And sometimes we forget, dilute all the life experience that has brought us to this place. So I think when you're able to really think about how to tell your story, think about your milestones. Think about what are the top 3 things that you are most proud of, and what could they mean for this role, for this job? How can you translate your proudest accomplishments, maybe some of the skills and character traits that you have that really came out during these milestones when you were doing these activities, and then translate them into how they can be applicable for this job. So you're kind of going through the same process of looking at the stakeholder, doing that stakeholder analysis, understanding what they're looking for, but you're trying to translate your story to make it most applicable to them. So it's really about leveraging your personal brand here. So I would say think about the what, so what, and now what. You know, what is the core message you really have to communicate to them that they have to know, that they need for their team moving forward? And then, you know, what's in it for them? How can your unique talent and skills really benefit them? And you probably want to put in 1 or 2 examples by, you know, case studies of times you've showcased this talent in the past. And then lastly, what is your courageous ask? You know, maybe it is the asking for the opportunity and saying, I'm available as of this time, and here's what I'm asking for, and what do you think, and asking for feedback. Sometimes we do such a great job of selling ourselves, but we forget the ask at the end. And I think that you've earned the right to ask. So there's a piece of owning your worth, owning your awesomeness, and owning your story here, and communicating it in a really confident, clear manner. And I hope that the what, so what, and what now what, can help in structuring your story.
Great. Thank you. Next question. What are the factors to consider when dealing with different cultures?
Ooh. Well, many. So I think when you're doing that stakeholder analysis, it's a great point. You know, really recognizing diversity and differences in cultures and differences in communication style is key. So one thing that I found, especially working abroad, was that you need time to kind of observe what's going on. I think when you're doing that stakeholder analysis and really thinking about the person you want to engage and how best to engage them, put yourself in their shoes. You know, are they more of an auditory learner where they respond better with a face-to-face meeting and you're going to be able to really have a strong discussion face-to-face? Or are they somebody who, you know, tends to like to take in information and then they need a few days to maybe process it all and come back to you with an answer? I think it's important to understand who that other person is, what cultural factors come into play, and then choose how you tell your story based on that. So I think it's really being observant to the culture around you, that workplace culture, and then that specific person you want to engage, and then using that as a way to decide how you communicate your story. You know, so again, it may be auditory, it may be emailing them a case study. It may be, you know, there are many times where we don't have to be the one talking about ourselves. Sometimes we can build champions and advocates to do that for us if that's going to resonate a little bit better in a specific work culture. So observe, think about your stakeholders, and then choose how to tell your story based on that.
Great. The next 2 questions go hand in hand, and this is in action. So you're a project lead working with your team. You go one direction and your team goes another. How can you use storytelling to bring everyone back to the same stage?
Oh, I love this question. Okay. So, I mean, this happens a lot, right? We're in so many different team environments and we're all going in different directions. So this is a great example of bringing people back to that step 2. Begin with the end in mind. If you're looking for that alignment, that sense of, hey, are we all on the same page here? You can use storytelling using that by bringing people back to the objective, the mission. Go back to the beginning and reiterate, how did we start? Where do we want to go? And then maybe you're kind of looking at your entire project as a timeline and saying, okay, If we started here and we want to get here, where are we now and how do we get there? So I think you can really use storytelling by getting people back to thinking about, are we on the same page and what's our end goal? And one thing that I found I've witnessed from some CEOs I've worked for, so senior management, I think great examples of ways they've done that is by sharing personal examples, personal stories. You know, tell us about a time when you were doing a project, or yeah, tell us about a time when you were doing a project and things veered off track a little bit. What did you do to get them back on track? And then what was the outcome? So if you can bring in another example where you're showing them, hey, it's okay to go off track as long as we can recognize we have an opportunity to reassess here, then do it. So it's kind of using storytelling as a way to bring in a story from your past as a way to illustrate where you are today, but then also going back to get to the end goal. What's the end goal? Are you all looking in the same direction? Are you on the same page? So bring it back to the mission.
Great, thank you. Next two questions I think we all can relate to. So how do you overcome a micromanager, let's say in this instance a CEO, who does not allow you as the executive to make promotional or important decisions?
Wow, micromanagers. Oh, the bane of my existence.
The higher you go, the worse it gets.
So that's a very, that's a reality for so many of us out there. Well, you know what I would say to that is actually, what's the root cause? Sometimes when we think about micromanagers, it's around they want this element of control. So if you were to put yourself in their shoes and do that stakeholder analysis again, what's their fear? What's important to them? Is it attention to detail and they want to make sure all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and that's how you're going to engage them? So how can you demonstrate to them that you've got this? You do have that attention to detail and demonstrate that to them. So how can you spend a few moments to put yourself in their shoes to try to understand where they're coming from? That's one strategy. I think another one is really courageously stepping up and owning your worth and asking for exactly what you want and building that story for why it's important for you, So can you use the what, so what, now what as a structure to build a story for why it's important that you have some decision-making capabilities? Give an example of how you have made smart decisions in the past, some evidence, and how it's going to help your boss, how it can make his or her life easier, what's in it for them. And then the courageous ask at the end, where you're saying, hey, in this project, I want to have this kind of decision-making authority. Here's what it could look like. Can we try this out for 2 weeks? And this is the support that I need from you. So it's actually really clearly laying out what you want, why you're capable to get it, and then asking for it in a really clear, maybe blunt way. And I think there's a lot of courage that's going to be needed for that last part. But the reward could be big.
Absolutely. So this one is more of a situational question. So how do you react to management when they ask you to develop this amazing concept or idea, let's say for a product launch, but they're not able to give you the budget or resources to get it done? So one, how do you even get started with that conversation and convince them to give you more resources, more information, more money so that is successful?
So it sounds like you want to paint a clear picture of what is, right? What is possible, and then you want to make the gap so obvious via your story. So, so one way you could do that is to really say, again, showing kind of where we are today, where we want to be, and what exactly is needed to get there. You want to very clearly outline, whether it's in a presentation or verbally, you want to very clearly outline all the resources that are needed and the timelines to get from point A to point B. And then it's kind of, you're so obviously stating that there's a gap, then the third part is really asking for how you fill that gap. Because if you don't, you're showing management very in a visual that if clearly you don't get the resources, it's not possible to get there. So I think it's really about how vividly can you paint that picture, how can you use that, how can you use visualizations, whether it's a PowerPoint slide or some kind of visual to show point A to point B in the gap. And another thing I would say is, can you bring in examples from the past? So are there any stories where something similar has happened and the lack of resources has stopped a project? What was the outcome? Can you give an example of how lack of resources stopped an outcome and how that impacted the business in a negative way? So you want to avoid that in the future. So it's kind of bringing in your own story and clearly articulating it in kind of the what, so what, now what.
Great, thank you. All right, so we are down to the last question, which I love. Would you thread in improv to ramp up the effectiveness of storytelling?
Absolutely.
I agree.
I think improv is such a great tool to use in the work environment. And one concept that I love is the yes and. So that's a really popular concept in improv, where you're basically taking the offers that are given to you. Instead of thinking no but when somebody's saying something to you, you think yes and. That is such a powerful kind of perspective to have when you're in conversation with somebody, because it opens you up to the possibilities of what can happen. So I think even if you just take that one gift from improv, that yes and apply it today in your work this afternoon. I'd be interested to know what could happen for you, what could change. I think improv is about living in the moment, and I think that there's also this piece of it being okay to fail once in a while. In improv, people fail all the time, disastrously. And it's like, oh well, move on. The next minute, a whole new story can start. So recognize that sometimes you're gonna try strategies and put these tactics into play, and they're going to work, and sometimes they're not. But that's okay, because you take the learnings and you move forward, just like you would in improv on the stage. So I absolutely love improv, and I think there's a huge opportunity to bring more of those concepts into the workplace.
Great. Thank you. And that was the last question. So Tania, thank you for a very informative session and what I like to call just-in-time training. I know I'm better prepared for my year-end business presentation and, most importantly, my performance review coming up. I can tell you, after years in HR and working with high-performing leaders and teams, your goal of being seen and heard is on everyone's must-do list. So storytelling as a key leadership skill to advance your career and inspire, get buy-in, and finally taking action, which is pretty key, right? You've given us all these resources. And now we just have to take action. So your secret sauce combined with the 10-module e-course leaves no room for excuses for any of these attendees online. Participants, we do see a slide on the screen that shows you how to connect with Tania and get some additional information. Please follow her at Passion Igniter. Join her on Facebook, and she's also listed her email. We want to thank the attendees for joining. You will be sent a copy of the presentation. Additionally, we'll need your feedback. So you'll be sent a survey to complete as soon as possible. The more information we get, the better we can make these presentations in the future. The link to the special training is on the screen now. I'll go back to Tania. Do you want to put the...
Yeah.
Yes. So the Rock the Review, the $50 investment. So from my understanding, that $50 investment goes to the total cost, or is the program $50?
No, so it goes to the total cost. So this brings down the program price to $97. And it's lifetime access. So basically you can revisit it every year when performance reviews come up.
Well, I'll be sure to sign up for that. Very good discount, and considering how many resources I've used to educate folks on, giving and telling the story, their story effectively, this is a great investment. We do appreciate your time, Tania, and participants. Stay tuned for more as we send the information to your email boxes. Thank you, Nap, for allowing the presentation today.
And I want to thank you so much to all the participants, to Kim, Tommy, the whole NAP Toronto and NAP National team. I mean, wow, awesome teamwork. And thank you so much for your enthusiasm, everyone, and your investment in time today.
Okay, recording has stopped.